I'm with Tom Ogilvie, Managing Director of Brett Martin Daylight Systems. We're talking about sustainability and the role construction is playing in the UK's transition to a net zero future. This is part of London Climate Action Week. Tom, my first question obviously is, can you tell me a little bit about what Brett Martin thinks about the 2050 net zero targets?
I hope it's enough. Clearly, we support the government's goals to get down to net zero. I just hope that 2050 is soon enough. Like many companies, I guess, we've been working hard for many years, probably a couple of decades at least, to try and reduce our environmental impacts. There's always more that we can do. But yes, we're definitely supportive of it. We've had an ISO 14001 environmental system in place probably since 2007, and there's an awful lot of good things we've done, but yeah, clearly there's more we can do. And in fact, I think the more we go and the more we do, the more enthusiastic we are about reducing environmental impacts, because they always seem to have hidden benefits. You make a reduction in some emissions somewhere, and you get benefits in productivity or staff welfare, and it's amazing how much that seems to happen. Yeah. So yeah, very enthusiastic for it.
Okay. Can you just tell me a little bit more detail in terms of what Brett Martin is doing to play their part in reaching those targets?
Yes. Okay. Well, as I say, we've had various programs over the years, but our latest one is under the banner of a program we're calling We Care, which is focused really on four main areas. We've got energy, we've got carbon, we've got circular economy, and the fourth one's water use. So it's a bit broader than perhaps just carbon reduction, but obviously carbon reduction is central to all of those things really in many ways. The target is all about reducing our overall energy use. Obviously, the less energy we use, the lower the carbon emissions. But we're not going to reduce energy to zero. So the carbon target is, and the carbon theme is all about reducing the carbon content of the energy that we do use. So, and not just the energy that we use, but also the raw materials that we put into our processes and the operations. So that's about reducing the carbon footprint of our consumables. The circular economy theme is all about waste really at the moment. That's really where we're focusing. So it's about making sure that we don't send stuff to landfill, but we find ways of minimizing the byproducts of our processes, finding ways of using them in other processes, and also reducing the amount of virgin material that we buy in, and find ways of using recycled materials from other processes outside our own. And water is about reducing the amount of water. It always seems crazy to me that a huge proportion of the highly processed water we have in the UK is used for flushing toilets. But so we try to use less of that. But those are the main things that we're working on at the moment.
Okay. Could you give us a few examples in terms of a few more specifics of what you've done?
Okay. So I suppose typically we're a manufacturing company, so typically we're focusing on our manufacturing operations. And I guess was one we did recently where we changed the heating elements on a range of vacuum forming machines. We have to heat up the product in order to be able to soften it enough to form it. And by changing the heating method, we were able to target the heat much more effectively into the product rather than lots of it going out into the machine and into the factory. So and as I was saying earlier, there's often hidden benefits from these environmental changes, that not only does that reduce the amount of energy we have to consume, but it also speeds up the production process. And by not heating the factory, it makes it a slightly more comfortable working environment for the guys operating the machine as well. So it's sort of win-win-win all around. That was that's a fairly typical one. It's not all on the shop floor though. We've had other examples where office improvements. We've improved the ventilation in one of our main offices. We've gone for this heat recovery ventilation system, which it's a simple idea, but by saving or recovering the heat from the air that's emitted to atmosphere when we ventilate the office, and using that to warm the fresh incoming air, we've cut down the energy use quite substantially. But we've also increased the ventilation in the office and reduced CO2 levels, so it's a much more pleasant environment. And I was just going on to say, I think it's probably also helped during the pandemic. It keeps the airborne virus levels low if we've got lots of air changes every hour. So again, lots of hidden benefits in doing these things.
Okay.
I suppose I should plug, since a big part of our business is daylighting, I should really put in a plug for daylighting.
I was going
to. It's there's huge benefits, and we're discovering these now. That funny enough, we're quite latecomers to it ourselves, but by installing good quality roof lights and coupling that with low energy LED lighting systems with automatic sensors, we can cut down the energy use enormously. And again, people like working in daylit areas. So we've got examples now where we've actually saved up to 90% of the energy that would have gone into our old lighting system by simply making sure the lights turn off when they're not needed, and allowing the daylight to top it up. So yes, lots of programs that we can run both in the production areas and outside them.
You're right. Okay. So clearly, you're obviously, doing a lot for energy reduction. Can you give us an example of carbon reduction as well?
Yes. I suppose some of the biggest projects we've had have been related to carbon reduction. So we, as a manufacturer, we are using a large amount of electricity, and we've recently invested substantially in 2 forms of renewable energy on our main site in Northern Ireland. The first, which we did a few years ago now, was a big wind turbine, which generates well over 2 megawatts at peak levels of energy, which covers about 11% or so of the total energy that we consume on that site. And more recently, we've laid down about 35 acres of solar panels in a nearby field, which again is fed directly into that plant and generates another about 6.5 megawatts, which is enough for 1,600 homes, or equivalent to taking 1,000 cars off the road. So it's big impacts, and we're very proud of the fact that we've got both of those things on site effectively. It's not open to everybody to do that, and of course that's not the only things we can do. Much simpler things that we can do to decarbonize, everybody can do, for example. So in addition to the quarter or so of the energy we use being generated on site, a further quarter of our energy is from renewable sources, and we can do that by just buying it from the grid as renewable energy. We can support cycle to work schemes and hybrid EV cars, that sort of thing. I think 40% of our car fleet is currently either EVs, pure electric, or hybrid cars. So we're very well on the way down to doing that, decarbonising the energy that we do use.
Fantastic. Okay. You also mentioned the circular economy. How are you addressing that?
I suppose that's the one that we came to first, because that's got the most obvious impact on our bottom line, because raw materials is one of our big costs. But for example, we make a lot of injection molded products, and by switching to recycled material, both from other industrial processes and or from consumer recycling, the sort of things that people will put into their recycling bins, we can buy in that material and we can then use that in our injection molding processes. So some of our products are now well over 90% recycled material, and that's again very much about reusing and recycling.
Sure.
So that's packaging waste is another big example where we can take advantage of recycled material, and indeed we can make our own material more recyclable when it's at the end of its use. So there's a lot of work going on reducing the amount of materials that we need to buy.
One last question I had for you is: do you think the 2050 targets are achievable?
Does it really matter if we absolutely get to net zero or if we just get close to it? The key thing is we've got to get as close to it as we can, and we're clearly well on the way to it already. It's been interesting reading the press lately about just how far advanced the UK seems to be compared to many other countries in the world, and And yes, I think the achievements that we've shown already demonstrate that we're well on that road, and I think we'll surprise ourselves, and we'll probably get closer to it than we think we can.